Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Millennial Smark, and I'm back at it again with another video. And there's been a lot of talk going on currently after the Wrestle Dynasty show that just happened in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Obviously, tonight we got the Netflix debut of Monday Night Raw, which, by the way, just a reminder, unfortunately, I can't review it. Mondays and Tuesdays are just... I can't swap days like that. I can't take those days off. Those are the two most important days of the week. But I will be watching it regardless and keeping up with it. And if anything were to break on that show, obviously when I get off of work, I should be home around 11 o'clock. Of course, right when the show most likely goes off air. When I get back, I'll talk about any of the events that happen on the show, if anything ridiculous or historical happens. But this is not what this video is about. And I'm going to try to be very, how can I put this, non-biased about it, right? Very critical about what I've been seeing lately as far as most people's judgments on Sasha Banks, on Mercedes Mone, which we haven't talked about her in a while, like a good while. It's been a few months since I talked about Mercedes Mone. And apparently, because again, I didn't watch Wrestle Dynasty, apparently she won the championship belts, or the championship, I guess they had like a winner take all match with what's her name, Mina Shirakawa, the girl who dances a lot with Mariah May. And there's a lot of people, it's very divided, it's a very divided field, very divided opinion in regards to this decision, because on one hand you have people who are saying, well, Mercedes should have won the match, she's the bigger star. She has a gimmick right now where she's trying to do the whole Kenny Omega belt collector stuff that he did a couple of years ago. Apparently that's what she's doing right now. And not to mention, I mean, what can you say? When you have stans that dedicated, that loyal, liking that much in their own life, well, unfortunately, you know, they tend to be the loudest voices, even though in reality they're a minority, right? And then you have people on the other side who are saying things such as, well, here's Mercedes once again burying talent. Here's Mercedes once again putting her foot down where she shouldn't have put her foot down. And here's Mercedes once again, for better or for worse, being put over talent who are better than her. Now, I don't know this to be the case. Most of the women that Mercedes Mone has fought over these past few months, I don't know anything extensively about their background to speak as to whether or not they are better talents than Mercedes Mone. I think objectively we can say that everybody that goes up against Mercedes, star power wise, they're not going to be on the same level, because almost everybody that she's went up against has never had a mainstream main event level type of run in WWE like she has had. You know, we're talking about a person who main event at WrestleMania, right? And on a historical metric, I mean, then again, that historical metric is a little bit contrived, but nevertheless though, right, she is put in the spotlight, so therefore those circumstances that surround Mercedes Mone are going to be a little bit askewed compared to the next person, just objectively speaking, right? So the people that she's had, or that she's not in any order, by the way, but the people that she has beaten these past couple of months include women such as Willow Nightingale, Stephanie Vaquer, who happens to be on NXT right now, Britt Baker, she's beaten her. If I'm not mistaken, I think she beat Hikaru Shida, right? She beat her also. I know she has the what do you call it? The Neverweight or the Speed Champion, wherever the fuck, the purple belt that she has, that she won at some Japan show, that she beat somebody there. Obviously, we just mentioned Mina Shirakawa. She beat Chris Statlander twice in a row. So she has been on a bit of a run, right? especially when you consider that the work that she has been putting in, for the most part, at least stateside, and maybe even arguably, on the Japanese side, I don't think in comparison to the other women who have been there consistently, has been that much. Now, mind you, I don't care. I think if you want to present someone like a star, then you should damn sure limit their appearance to make their star power seem a lot more appealable, you know what I mean, or appealing, excuse me. I mean, the same thing could be said about wine. You let wine sit there, and the older it gets, the better it tastes with each sip. That whole little cliche. Same thing could be said about Mercedes Mone. My problem, though, is not so much the whole aspect of burying quote unquote talent, because that word bury gets thrown around so much that it doesn't really have any legit meaning anymore. You know what I mean? Like, people just say it for the sake of saying it without actually having legitimate description to describe the burying that's going on that coincides with the actual definition of the word burial, meaning that a talent, as far as how I've been seeing the definition burial throughout my life, it's a talent who was once here at the very top tier, who is now being made mockery of to the degree that they are now down here, drastically down here. You know what I mean? When I think of burials, even though you don't like the person, even though you could say that they didn't have that much talent, technically speaking, you could say a Jinder Mahal was a burial, technically, right? To a lesser degree, people like Rikishi in the year 2000 was somewhat of a burial when you think about it, right? Those are burials. When you make it to a certain level, that's peak, and then you drastically fall down from the previous spot that you were in at, right? That's a burial. And have I seen Mercedes do that to any of the talents? Not necessarily. You know what I mean? The level that those talents wrestled at, they haven't necessarily grown from where they were previously before they fought Mercedes. At least not to me. I didn't see anything. So does the word burial actually apply to a Mercedes Mone? Being objective here, no. I don't see how. You don't have to like a superstar. And this is what I mean when I see people and they constantly interchange definitions with words to mean something a lot more harsher than what it is, when in reality there are words suitable to whatever negative connotation you want to label somebody, and you can easily just fixate on that word and hammer it on every point of the way. You know what I mean? Or you can speak even in broader terms without having to reflect off of a certain word, right? Like, for an example, you have, say for an example, someone who's 21 or 20 years old and they're dating or having sex with someone who's in their 50s, right? You have people nowadays who will call that sexual assault or rape or molestation or whatever the case may be, using all these interchangeable evil words in order to describe the situation, when that's not the definition. That's not what it means. But at the same time, you can still say that the person is a creep. You can still say that the person is a fucking weirdo. And yeah, obviously, that's not going to have the exact impact as calling someone a rapist, hence why you say it, because, typically, if you feel something is a lot more harsher than what it is based off of your own personal bias, you're typically going to go along the way of just trying to smash that word down someone's throat to paint that person in that kind of narrative, right? The same thing could be said about people who are typically being used or talked about in a manner in professional wrestling that doesn't necessarily align with what's going on, especially when using the word buried. But like I said, when it comes to the interchanging of certain words, there are certain words you can still use about Mercedes Mone in regards to her being in the spot that she's in right now. No, she's not burying talent, but you could definitely say that she's undeserving to be in that spot. You can say that she's being pushed down your throats, and I know some people will probably find themselves wanting to do that the other way around, but get your minds out of the gutter right now. This isn't this kind of video. X videos that way. Can't say the same thing about porno because it's blocked in my state, but that's another story for another day. There are a lot of words and a lot of descriptors you can still use on Mercedes Mone, aka Sasha Banks, or the other way around, depending on how tribalist you are, in order to describe what she's been doing as of late. And for some people, you can also be sure to know how to use context so you don't get too lost in the sauce. Because your criticisms, as is, in my opinion, is valid. It's valid. It's absolutely valid. I think, yes, she has been shoved down our throats. Yes, I do think that Mercedes Mone is incredibly undeserving when you take into context her talents versus what she's actually been doing. And even though you can say that she's a bigger draw out of all the women that she's been competing up against, arguably one of the biggest women draws in professional wrestling today, what does that say? You know what I mean? That's not anything notable at all. You know what I mean? That's like someone being a mayor and someone being a president. Yeah, you both may be leaders in your certain sector, but one's a mayor and one's a president. Like, let's just use a little bit of common sense here, right? And with Mercedes, it's like, okay, what you're currently doing as far as how you're meeting the standards of what professional wrestling is today is a good thing, but is it deserving of what you've been putting across as of late that should be giving you, or at the very least you yourself reaping the rewards of said admiration in order to push yourself into that position already? You get what I'm trying to say? It's like a cycle a little bit, right? It's like a felling upwards type of cycle, right? You don't necessarily draw as much as people like to think you draw, especially in today's society where, I mean, everybody calls everything a draw because you happen to be in that echo chamber. So therefore, when you step out and you see actual draws, or you look in the history books and you see what those numbers actually mean, you have a little bit more better clarity whenever judging a situation like that, right? And you hear my tone of voice. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a Sasha Banks fan, because I'm certainly not. I think she's highly overrated. I said as much in 2024 or throughout 2024. But I like to be very objective whenever actually talking about the points that I talk about. So when they actually do mess up, or we get to the point where they've messed up so drastically that people want to point out the flaw, I can be like, whoa, I mean, can't say I didn't tell you, right? I've been pointing out this flaw for the past couple of years now. Where have you been? Oh, that's right, stuck up her ass, stuck up his ass, depending on the superstar you're standing for at the moment. But that's what I mean when it comes to the standing universe overall versus what's actually going on in professional wrestling, and why you should be very, 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 very keen on your surroundings when seeing your own bias and being more self-aware of who you are whenever judging the situation. Because like I said, the last thing you want is to get lost in the sauce and then objectivity gets thrown out of the window, but then you expect that same objectivity about someone who's standing for someone who you don't like, when your reasonings are probably valid, but you can't say anything because hypocritically, what can you say when characteristically speaking, you are exactly the same person who you're criticizing at the moment? I try my best to step out of that echo chamber. Even in politics nowadays, I don't consider myself like as right as I used to be, because I don't want to be in a cult. You know what I mean? I'm still very much on the right, but at the same time, I'm very keen on my surroundings, and I watch opposing viewpoints in order to at least get their side of the story and see where I can meet in the center, or go even further right, or hell, even in some cases go left, just because I need to know if I'm at least, I don't care about being right. All I care about is the truth at the end of the day. And the truth is, with Sasha Banks, with all that she's doing right now, as I said, she's undeserving, but it comes right back to the whole premise of she doesn't have the talent to pull off what everybody keeps putting her in this position of admiration believes that she has. Like, let's just call a spade for a spade. Whether you're a stan of hers or whether you're not a stan of hers, I think objectively you can see what she brings to the table, and it's not a lot to justify what she's currently doing at the moment. It simply isn't. It's not to justify. I mean, I really look at Sasha Banks and everybody that she has beaten. Like I said, objectively, I get it. I understand the star power appeal, but you have to be able to tell me the star power appeal that put her into a position to have all this consideration and all this charitability to have her put over so many superstars to now be coined Sasha Hogan, right? Like, to be called Hulk Mone is what I've seen on social media also. Like, she's legitimately burying talent left and right. And like I said, objectively, you can look at something like a Roman Reigns, and maybe you can question that also. How big of a draw is Roman Reigns, right? You can question, was he organically that much of a draw as far as his talents are considered, or was he just pushed by the machine, or was he just a cog in the machine, and now he has so much power because of this machine who artificially made him into an Austin, made him into a Hogan, made him into a Bruno, hell, made him into a John Cena even, right? And the machine made John Cena, but at least he had talent to at least be decided by the machine. It feels like Roman Reigns was just a caricature artificially built in order to be put into the cog of the machine, to be spit out, to be this artificial top guy in the whole entire industry. So does that come from any merit? Same thing can be said about a Sasha Banks. Where is the merit that comes with any of this? You can sit here and you can prescribe numerical metrics in order to persuade people as to why your argument makes sense, as to why Sasha Banks should be in this position. But does it really mean anything in the grand scheme of things when you see all those numbers that coincide, right? All these things that pretty much tell you that she's the queen of quantity. But what I'm not seeing in all of this is the quality. And we all know quality is subjective in the end of the day. I get that. But let's go down the road. Come down the road with me. Let's walk hand to hand, shoulder to shoulder. Let's see what she actually brings to the table from a quality standpoint that puts her into the position where she's now being accused of burying talent, or at the very least being accused by me, because I like to use words correctly, of being shoved down our throats and being excessively annoying in regards to her booking. Does she have the microphone skills, right? The promo. I think one can argue charisma, depends on how you look at it. You know, you have the whole little CEO gimmick. She has the swagger. She comes down with the entrance. She has the special attires, the gears, all this other kind of stuff. She has the appeal as far as the look is considered, as far as looking like a star. I won't take that away from her. Objectivity, saying that word over and over again, because again, always keep your bias in check. Objectivity. Yes, she has the star look. Yes, the appeal, I completely see it. Yes, the aesthetic, absolutely understand. But after that, that typical look that coincides with people in your mind that you were keen to being a star. You look at superstars, like athletes and stuff like that. You look at like hip hop artists nowadays and stuff like that. They typically align with whatever talent that they have. Their talent typically accentuates their appeal, hence why they dress the way they dress, because they're influencers, right? When Sasha gets in the ring and she talks in the microphone, she has these little champagne bottles, the glasses, tilted, all this other kind of stuff, like she's a mega star, right? Does her microphone skills, does her words convey that aesthetic about her? Of course not. You sit here and you say she does, then you're just lying to yourself. You have to be objective about this, because if you're not objective, then she's not going to get better. And the worse that she gets, the more criticism hurts your little fucking weak ass hearts. No, she needs to get better at this. The microphone, the skills on the stick, whatever you want to call it, she needs to get better. The gift of the gab ain't her gift. She needs to train to get better. She needs to get better. Constantly having to sway it to the side, kicking the can down the road ain't doing no one any favors, and especially ain't doing any favors for her. So put that to the side for a second. Let's talk about the obvious, right? The in-ring stuff, because apparently we live in a generation who thinks they're the greatest because they can do a 450. Okay, let's look at that. Now, like I said, everything when it comes to in-ring is going to be subjective in the end of the day, right? Okay, you tell me then. How many meteoras do you have to do? How many triple suplexes do you have to do and call yourself Eddie Guerrero? How many fucked up frog splashes do you have to do? How many fucking fucked up finishes do you have to do for me to consider you the reason as to why this match is incredible? I mean, you put her in the ring with someone who's as incompetent in the ring, like say a Britt Baker, for an example, who is horrible in the ring. And I think it speaks metrics to who she is as a talent, right? Of course, you go out there with a Chris Statlander, an actual good in-ring opponent, as far as how she carries herself. Of course, you're gonna have an excellent match. Of course, you go out there with some of those Japanese wrestlers, right? And you're not constrained to the confines of the American style. Of course, those Japanese women wrestlers are gonna typically carry you through all those matches. But when it's up to her to have to lead the match, again, you get Britt Baker. You get Britt Baker. And like I said, this is not to take away from the history of good matches that Sasha Banks has had in the past. Obviously, in my opinion, I think the greatest women's match of all time is her match with Bayley at NXT Brooklyn back in 2015. I'm not taking anything away from her past achievements. What I am here is to ask her past achievements. I think you're being biased and you're taking her past achievements and you're trying to coincide with who she is right now. And like I said, your quantity metrics does not make someone good. Okay, just because you had a long career doesn't mean all of a sudden you deserve to have a good career. Jobbers have made Brooklyn Brawler, for an example, Gilbert, a bunch of jobbers. And I'm not calling Sasha Banks a jobber. I'm just using an example as to why a long career doesn't have to be considered a good career, and you can still be notable and famous and all this other stuff. Remembered, all this other kind of stuff, right? The best in your field or whatever the hell you want to call it. You can still be that without being considered someone who deserves the position that Sasha Banks has, that coincides with all the stuff that she has done, and then sitting here and saying that she's justified to be in that position. And I'm not here to pretend that I'm stupid. I'm not here to pretend that the internet doesn't exist, where everybody has their own little group, right? Where the stans have their own group, where they feel that whatever they say is going to be only affecting the millions of people within their group. And because there are millions within their group, that means automatically they're right. So whatever is said about Sasha Banks outside of that group, you should ignore, because our group of millions, count them, 1, 2, a million, they're always going to be right, because it's all of us. And then look at them outside of the group. Look at them outside of the group. It's the million of us and everybody outside of the group who criticizes her. Well, I mean, they lack. They're in the minority. Never take into consideration, outside of the people who just criticize her, there are people who don't give a shit about her. Otherwise, they be a part of your million. That's what I'm saying. I don't hate Sasha Banks. Contrary to belief, I don't hate her. Like every other wrestler, I want you to get better. I want you to fit the appeal of what you're trying to put across. And if it's your fans that are holding you back, then nip that shit in the bud as fast as you can. But sitting here, seeing all the titles, all the appeal, burying, no, not the word that you should be using in order to conjure up this narrative about Sasha Banks booking herself and putting pen to paper as far as what she perceives she should be doing. Like, she's not the one out there. Now, maybe she might have a bit of influence creatively, but I doubt she's the one going to Gato or to Tony Khan and being like, hey, put me over this person, 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 put me over this person. But at the same time, as the comment post I posted a couple of days ago show you, it's not to say that she doesn't have any kind of leeway over them, creatively speaking. And if for nothing else, because of how much money she's being paid, at the very least, it's almost like you owe it to yourself in order to justify what the hell you paid her. I think everything surrounding Sasha Banks and Mercedes at the moment, when talking about her, evades those points. And of course, there's going to be people in the comment section. They're not going to hear the entire video. They're not going to hear the things that are actually coming out of my mouth, and they're immediately going to jump down my throats, because that's just tribalism, right? That's just people within the group. It's either negative or it's positive. There is no middle ground. That's their perspective. They're not worth having conversations with, because you can't have conversations with those people. But with you guys, the ones who are listening, and hell, I'm not even talking about the people who automatically hate Sasha Banks. They're just as tribal as the people who love Sasha Banks. I'm not talking to the people who automatically hate her also, to put them to the side. They're not worth talking to also. I'm talking to you, the minority, the person in the middle who just wants wrestling to be better. I'm talking to you, common sense, logic. You want wrestlers to be in the position that justify the position. How do you feel about everything that I've said currently? Do you have anything in regards to maybe I'm missing something? Maybe undeserved critiques? Let me know in the comment section down below. Once again, reminder, if you're in the future, ignore this. I won't be here to do the review for Netflix tonight. But if anything were to happen or anything to pop off, I will talk about it when I get back home. Otherwise, comments, opinions, comment section below. As always, my name is Devontae, aka Millennial Smart, and I'll be catching you guys later. Deuces, P. Ice.